Release the Kraken!
Welcome back, fellow game designers. In our last episode, went ahead and made a link for our chain. And this one, I went ahead and prep it for getting into the game engine. Now, you could just take it as it is and bring it into the game engine and set it up in there. I prefer doing it inside of Maya because I think it's a bit easier to navigate. But hey, you're welcome to export this now as an FBX and bring it in as a single link. However, you have a few more tools available to you in Maya to make this pattern that you see here very quick, very easily, instead of having to go through and do it inside the game engine, which can be a bit tedious. So here we go. I'm going to jump in. We're going to take our single link, and I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate. I'm going to select the first one, press H to hide it, and now we have just our second one. We always want to keep a duplicate of the original because if we lose it, we'd have to start all over. All right, so here's my copy, and you can see if I move it, there's nothing behind it. This one's hidden. We're going to use a mesh network. So come over to mesh. Make sure your object is selected, and very important, before you start your mesh network, make sure everything has been frozen. So these should all be zeroed out, and then your scales should be set to 1. If it's not, you're going to get bugs. You can go to modify and then freeze transforms if you haven't done that yet. And then go over to mesh and make sure your object's selected, hit mesh. And here is our mesh network. So if we go over to the mesh settings, go to attributes, we have a bunch of stuff in here. We have distribute. We're going to go to this tab. And you can see we can add more chains. We can space them out. We can rotate them. And you can see why this is much more convenient to do inside of Maya than to do it in, say, Unreal or Unity. Now, we don't really want this linear pattern. We want it to loop around like this one here, which is kind of like a long section, and then it kind of curls back onto itself. To do that, we're going to use a curve. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my channel box just to kind of give myself more space. Come over to your mash_1. Press H to hide it. That's going to clear our area. And then we're going to come up to curves and surfaces, and I'm going to grab this little pen tool here. This is our pencil curve tool. Okay, go ahead and select that. Now I'm going to go to a top view, and I'll find the center of my grid here, which is here. And I'm going to draw out that shape that is in the picture. So it's basically like a question mark. So I come around, kind of loop around, and it kind of loops back on itself, like so. Perfect. So now we have a curve. I'm going to go ahead and grab my pointer tool. Select your mesh, and then hit H to turn it back on. Go back into the mesh network. You can get to the network by using either of these. This is the main network, and this is the network object. If you go to attributes, you'll see that you can get to the all the different parameters for the mesh network in here, but you also have the shape options. So you can use either one to get to where we need to go. I'm going to jump into mesh just to make it simple, and then go to the mesh 1 tab. Again, you can get here in either of these. So if I'm in this part, I just want to look over to the mesh 1 tab, which is here, and it gets us to the same spot. So it doesn't really matter which one you're using, it's the same thing. In your mesh 1 tab, you can see you have a bunch of different options for setting up your mesh. But in this case, we want to use the curve option. So go ahead and hit that, and then add curve. So now we have a curve node, and if we come over to our node here, now we have our curve node option. Right now our curve is currently empty. I'm going to come over to our curve, and I want to drag this into here, but you can't just left click and drag. That doesn't work. You see that it just scrolls. So make sure inside your mesh, inside your curve, hover over, middle mouse click, that's the mouse wheel, push down on that, and then drag that out, and then drop it in. And now we have a curve that we can use. I'm going to come down to the step option, and I'm going to set this step to 1. That's going to tell it to use the maximum influence on this curve. But you can see it's still a little bit broken. I'm going to come over to the distribute tab. So mesh distribute, and then come down. We want to be under linear. And then we're going to take the distance and set that back down to 0. And that's going to give our curve all the focus. for this distribution. Really nice. Now you can see that I have rotation on here, and the rotation no longer works. The reason for that is we're now using the curve to do our rotations. So I'm going to turn the rotations to 0. Come into the mesh curve. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to uncheck calculate rotation. But now with this unchecked, if we go back into distribute, the rotations that I have here are kind of baked on, which I don't want. I actually want to be able to control this. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Z to before I attach my curve. So I'll go up to here. I'm going to Control Z before that's attached. Okay. I want to make sure that I disable any rotations. Very important, because that's going to mess us up later. Now we can go back and re-enter our curve. So I'll middle mouse drag the curve in. And I will set my distribute distance back down to 0. And I'll put my steps back up to 1. So now we have something we can work with. Okay. I'm going to come up to our mesh distribute and figure out how many links that we want for our chain. So right now 10 looks pretty good. So now, right now 10 looks a bit too Spartan. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. A couple more links. 18 links. That's kind of decent, I think. About 19. We'll keep it simple. We'll do about 18 links. Okay. Awesome, awesome. Come back into curve, and I'm going to come down to where it says calculate rotation. I'm going to uncheck that. That way, these are all straight. And this is going to be very important. You'll see why in just a minute. Okay. But now with these all straight, we can kind of see the distance between each one, right? You can pretty much fit a link in between each one of these. So I'll take the curve, and go ahead and just scale the curve down. You can see as I scale my curve in, I can adjust the distance. I'm going to make it so that these overlap just a little bit. So probably a little bit more. Remember that the scale tool is here. You can also get to it by pressing the R key. I'm just going to use the middle scale. And that looks pretty good. I can probably change my network, so I'll go to my mesh. Go to distribute, and I can probably distribute these down a couple less. So 15 links, we'll call it there. Now here's what you want to do. Select your mesh group, which is this guy, mesh1 underscore repo mesh. Control D to duplicate it. Use the move tool and just move the new section off. And you see it's a group here. I'll hold X and just snap it to something. F to frame up. So now we can do some manipulation to this. Our network is still here if we want to make changes. Okay? But our new one, we are going to separate all these links. And since most of the work is done for us, everything's in position, we're just going to tweak the angles of each one of our links. Go to polymodeling. And then we want to go to mesh and then separate. Everything's good and separated, but you can see that the pivot point is all messed up. So the pivot's there relative to this object. I'm going to grab all those and then hit the center pivot icon. So now that each one is center. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn each one of these relative to its neighbor. So this one, I'll go every other one. Grab this one, this one. I'm jumping every other chain. Okay. E to rotate, and I'll hold down the J key to snap rotate. I'm going to rotate about 90 degrees so they're upright. Not very good. And now I'm going to arrange these however I need. So here's my first link. I'll use it as my base, and I'll let this one move in a little bit and center. Now as you're moving these, it's really handy to be in object orientation. So if you hold down the W key and left click, you can bring up your orientation menu and you should be on object. If you're on world, it'll look like this, which is going to be kind of confusing when you get down to something over here and you want to rotate. Like if I rotate this guy, it's still pointing in world. So we want to make sure that we're in object rotation. So W, left click, object. Very good, that one's good there. I'm going to move this one. I'm going to try to follow my angle, so I'm going to rotate this a little bit. And I'll move it so that it's inside the link there. Tried to have them passing through each other. This one, I'll rotate a little bit more. Looks good. This one, just rotate this way. Center it up. You can see why being an object orientation is really handy, because this is the handle is relative to the angle of the object, which makes positioning it a little bit nicer. Grab this one, I'll move it down and over. This one I'll move into position. I'm going to just continue this pattern around. I'm going to go to my top view just so I can get a better look at things. Right now I'm in wireframe, that's 4 on the keyboard. Grab this guy, orient. And just make sure you check your views so you're not getting any weird like clipping or anything. Move this one. Let's see, this one and this one I can rotate. And this one, okay, and just rotate this. This one. Maybe I'll go out a little bit on the angle. This one. And this one. Now I have 18 links, but I have an extra link here. This link won't really match up with these, so I'm going to go ahead and just move this one off and I'll just delete it. And now I have a pattern that I can work with. I can just tighten these up a little bit. So I'll move this one a little bit more this way. Now I'll take these 3. Try to position them so that I can loop this back on itself. It's almost an impossible task because these are kind of thick chains, but it's okay. I get these 2 and I'll move them. Now you can see sometimes as I go to move this, they move in different directions. And that's because we are in object orient, which means that this guy's left and right arrow is not the same as this guy's left and right arrow. So this is one of those cases where we can move in the world axis and it'll be more helpful. So I'll grab that. And that. Hold down W, left click, go to world. And now we'll force them both to move in the same relative space. So here is the chain. And you can use this to set up more links if you like. So I'll go ahead and just add a couple more. So Control D on those two. I'll just move these down. There we go. We have our set of chains. So at this point, we no longer need our mesh network. You're welcome to keep it if you like. I'm going to go ahead and hide it. So I'm going to select my main mesh. And I'll just press H to hide. I'll also hide the curve. And then I'll take my group here and open it up. So hit the plus sign that's on there. Now I have all these guys. I'm going to grab them. And then I'm going to move these out of the group. So first, going to edit, delete by type, history. That's going to clean up some of that. And then I'm going to move it out of the group by holding middle mouse click and dragging. So middle mouse drag till I have a line, and I'll just drop it out. I can remove this group here. And then I have all of them. So what I do with this is I'm going to make a hierarchy. So I'll use this one as my main link. I'm going to parent the next one to it. So this one to this one. So this one, hold shift, select, and then P. Next one up, select the one behind it, and then P. And you'll see that this one is now the main controller. This one controls that one, and this one will get this one. We'll keep that pattern. So this one to this one, P. This one to this one, P. This one to this one. I'm going to move in that pattern. This one back to that one. And so on. And then our last link we'll leave open because we want this, like when the link breaks, to be able to fall apart and that sort of stuff. So we'll leave that as it is. And now we have our hierarchy over here. If I hit the plus sign, you'll see that each one of these is a child of the next. If I grab this one, it's the child of this one behind it, but it is the parent of these, and so on. Okay, this is going to be more important later on. I'm going to go ahead and select the hierarchy. We're going to rename this hierarchy. So I'm going to go up to Modify, come down to Search and Replace Names. And in here, I'm going to replace the poly surface with link for a chain link. And I'll hit Apply. Yay! And I'll go ahead and just reorder these. So the first one is going to be 1. And so on. So then 2. So now we have our links and they are named. Again, you do want to go through and name these because it's going to be important later on. Go ahead and select the parent and then move this center of the world. So hold down X and just drag center. And then you're going to position this however you want it to be inside your game. So in this case, if this is going to be my root, I want to move the root center. Okay. If you want the center to be in the middle, then you can move its center this way. But I tend to move the center object to world center. And then from here, we can just select all these. And then freeze the transforms. So freeze. And that should make this one 0 and these all 0 relative to it. Now let's go ahead and export it. So go ahead and select your main link there. File, export selection. And then we're going to do this as an FBX export. Inside of geometry, make sure we have smoothing groups. These 3 generally. And then animation, we don't have any of that, so you can leave that open. And we're going to go ahead and name this chain link, or you can name it chain. Actually, I have an old chain here, so let's go overwrite that. And then export. Alrighty. So that'll do it for this video. In the next one, we're going to look at how to get this into Unity and Unreal, and then how to set it up. Alright, so stay tuned, and I shall see you next time. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Also, we are at 1,500 subscribers. Woo! That is awesome possum. Rocket Flip is out. If you have not taken a look at my latest devlog, it is in open beta testing, so if you want to grab a copy and test it out, see how it plays, leave some feedback, it really helps me out. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I shall see you next time.